Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You'll get intimacy when I feel like it. That's what she said, without looking up from her phone, without blinking. Like she hadn't just sliced something open inside me and let it bleed out on the kitchen floor. And I didn't yell. I didn't slam a door. I didn't even ask what the hell that was supposed to mean. I smiled. That's what got her. The smile. Calm. Measured. The kind of smile you give when the final piece clicks into place and the whole ugly picture makes sense. Because in that moment, I finally understood. She wasn't fighting. She'd already won, at least in her mind. For months, maybe years, I'd been trying to salvage a marriage she had slowly, methodically, let rot from the inside. And now she was throwing scraps and acting like they were a favor. She didn't flinch when I walked out of the kitchen. Didn't ask where I was going. Because she thought I'd be back. I always came back. But this time, I didn't. That night, I lay next to her in bed, wide awake, while she scrolled Instagram reels with her back turned. I stared at the ceiling, not angry, just aware. Hyper-aware. She used to laugh at my terrible jokes. Used to brush against me in the hallway like she couldn't help it. Now I could stand in front of her and be completely invisible. This wasn't burnout. This wasn't stress. This was detachment. Hers. So I detached, too. Not loudly. Not with a bang. With silence. The next morning, I didn't make her coffee. Didn't kiss her forehead like I had for years. I left the house early and sat in my car for 30 minutes, just breathing. Like I hadn't really taken a breath in months. She didn't notice. Or pretended not to. But here's the thing. The most dangerous man in the world isn't the one who yells. It's the one who stops needing to be heard. That week, I changed the passcode to my phone. Canceled a joint subscription she never noticed I paid for. Booked a solo session with a financial advisor. Quiet moves. Surgical precision. No drama. Just math. At dinner, I ate in silence while she scrolled TikTok. When she finally looked up and asked, "You okay?" I met her gaze and said, "Better than I've been in a long time." She blinked, but didn't respond. That's when I knew. She felt the shift. She just didn't know where it was headed yet. But I did. And it started with 7 words. "You'll get intimacy when I feel like it." That was her final line. Now it was my turn to write the rest of the story. The first day, she didn't notice anything. Or maybe she did, but told herself I was just in a mood. That's the luxury of indifference. You can pretend silence is peace. By day 3, it stopped being silence. It became absence. Not physical. Emotional. A cold void where I used to be. At breakfast, I didn't ask about her day. Didn't comment on her outfit. Just ate, cleaned my plate, and left for work without a glance. At night, I stayed out longer. Hit the gym. Took drives. Stopped by a bookstore I hadn't visited in years. Bought a journal. Started writing again. Not to understand her, but to remember myself. She didn't say much at first. Just looked up when I walked in later than usual, wearing a dress I hadn't seen since our 2nd anniversary. Her hair done. Eyes searching. "You're late," she said. I shrugged. Didn't realize we were keeping score. And then I walked past her, straight to the bedroom. Calm. Cool. Not rude, just distant. She didn't follow. But I felt her eyes tracking me like a predator realizing the prey had learned how to bite back. The next morning, she made pancakes. From scratch. Set the table. Even poured my coffee without asking how I liked it. As if she remembered. I sat down, ate, and said, "Thanks." That's all. No smile. No affection. No reaching across the table like I used to. Her hand twitched once, as if she might grab mine. But I moved first. Picked up my plate and walked it to the sink. That night, she touched my back in bed. Light. Testing. I didn't react. Just turned slightly, like her hand was a breeze I hadn't felt. This wasn't cruelty. This was clarity. She had spent years rationing affection like it was currency she alone controlled. Now the bank was closed. She started texting me during the day. Nothing direct. Little things. "Hope your morning's going okay. Thinking of making pasta tonight. You want any?" "Miss you." I responded, always within a few minutes. Not to be kind, but calculated. "Morning's fine. Whatever works." "You too." Short. Controlled. Designed for one thing. To mirror back everything she'd given me for the past 2 years. That's when the tone of her voice changed. It wasn't dismissive anymore. It was uncertain. Soft. Almost small. But I didn't soften. Because I remembered. I remembered the months I begged her to connect. The nights I turned toward her and felt her body stiffen like mine was made of static. I remembered the look in her eyes when she said, "You'll get intimacy when I feel like it." Like I was a burden she'd decided to tolerate. Now she felt the weight of that sentence. Not because I threw it back at her, but because I disappeared into silence and made her listen to the echo. She thought distance was power, but real power is when the other person doesn't need the bridge anymore. And I was already on the other side. By the end of the first week, I wasn't just distant, I was unavailable. Not physically. I still lived there, still walked the same halls, still shared the same bed. But emotionally, mentally, I was gone. Like a light she didn't know she'd turned off. She started trying harder, in her own awkward way. Asking questions she hadn't asked in years. Cooking dinner 2 nights in a row, even lighting candles once. And when I came home late from the gym, she was sitting on the couch wearing the lingerie I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. I walked in, nodded, and went to the fridge. She looked at me like she expected a reaction. She didn't get one. I ate quietly, standing, then went upstairs and shut the door behind me. That was the moment it started to break for her. Not the silence, the disinterest. She had built her confidence on the assumption that I would always orbit her, that no matter how cold she got, I'd find my way back. But when I didn't, even when she baited the trap, something shifted in her. The next morning, she touched my arm in the hallway. It wasn't seductive. It was desperate, almost like she was trying to remember how to be warm again. I moved away, not harshly, just enough. That's when she started asking about my day again. What I was doing after work, where I was going, who I was with. I gave her polite answers. Brief, accurate, empty. She asked if I wanted to do something together that weekend. I told her I already had plans. With who? Some people. She didn't press. Not directly. But I saw the flicker in her eyes. Doubt. Anxiety. It was growing. And I let it. Because she needed to feel it. Not the punishment, but the absence. Not because I was cruel, but because she had spent years teaching me how it felt. Now the lesson was coming back to her. One night, I walked in and caught her staring at my laundry. She had pulled one of my gym shirts from the dryer and was holding it like it might speak to her. I watched for a second, then cleared my throat. She jumped, spun around, and fumbled an excuse about just helping out. I nodded. Didn't thank her. Didn't accuse her. Just walked away. Let her sit with it. She used to be the unpredictable one. The one who kept me guessing. Now she was the one looking over her shoulder, waiting for signs. Signals. Clues about what I was thinking, what I was planning. But I gave her nothing. Just calm, consistent distance. No threats. No fights. Just space. And not the kind she wanted. The kind she had earned. And here's what she never understood. A man doesn't need to yell to be heard. Sometimes silence says it all. Especially when it's permanent. By the start of the second week, the house had changed. Not visually, nothing had moved. But the energy was different. I could feel her watching me more, listening for cues in every sentence, searching my face for emotions I no longer showed. That, more than anything, told me the plan was working. I wasn't punishing her. I was erasing her. Bit by bit. Softly, she started leaving little openings. One night, she sat beside me on the couch, closer than usual, pretending to scroll, but angling toward me like proximity could fix what distance had done. I kept my posture relaxed, my eyes on the TV, my soul somewhere far away. She laughed at a joke I didn't tell. Reacted to a moment on the show we weren't watching together. She was performing closeness. And I didn't applaud. That was the moment her voice changed again. Less confidence. More hesitation. Like she realized something was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't name it yet. She started showing up in the kitchen when I did. Asking if I wanted anything from the store. Asking if I'd be home for dinner. Asking if I had plans. Always asking. And I always answered the same way. Cool. Respectful. Vague. She hated the vagueness. I could see it unraveling her. Because once, I used to give everything, too much, maybe. Every detail. Every plan. Every piece of myself. Now she got surface-level updates and a closed-door heart. It didn't stop her from trying. She baked one evening. Banana bread. My favorite. The smell filled the kitchen like it was 2017 again. She set the plate down in front of me with a napkin, didn't say a word, just waited. I took one slice. Ate it. Said, thanks. And nothing more. She hovered in the doorway for a minute. Then left. That's when I knew she had crossed the line from confidence to confusion. She didn't know how to reach me anymore. And the scary part? I didn't want her to. I didn't hate her. That would require too much energy. I just didn't care. And indifference, I've learned, is louder than any rage. That night, I sat on the back patio with a bourbon and my journal. I wrote down 3 names, financial institutions I needed to call. I made a checklist. Separate account. Separate card. Passwords changed. The next morning, I executed. Clean. Discreet. Untraceable. At least until it mattered. She asked if I wanted to watch something together that evening. Suggested the old crime series we used to binge. I nodded, told her I'd see how I felt. I never showed up in the living room. She waited. I heard her pause the episode halfway. Waited longer. Then went upstairs alone. Let her feel it. Not anger. Just absence. And the worst part for her? She was starting to realize this wasn't temporary. She was losing something she didn't think could leave. Me. The 3rd week brought something new. Cracks. Small ones, subtle, but visible if you knew where to look. She stopped humming in the mornings. Her texts became longer, more emotional. She started dressing up for work again, putting effort into her appearance like she was hoping I'd notice. I didn't. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't care enough to reward performance. One night, I came home late, again. She was waiting at the kitchen island, wine glass in hand, makeup still fresh. She had made dinner. Real dinner. Not takeout, not microwave steam bags. Plates set, candles lit, jazz playing low like a scene from a life we no longer lived. I stepped inside, dropped my keys, took a breath, and said nothing. She gestured toward the food like it was obvious. Like I should be grateful. Like her effort was enough to reverse gravity. I made your favorite, she said. I looked at the table, looked at her, then grabbed a protein shake from the fridge. I ate already. She didn't respond, didn't cry, but I saw it, the flicker of disbelief. The subtle shift of a woman realizing the rules had changed and no one had told her. The silence after that stretched like wire. Eventually, I walked past her, upstairs. Calm. Controlled. She didn't follow. The next morning, her tone cracked for the first time. She asked where I was going. I told her I had errands. She asked if we could talk later. I told her I'd be home late. She didn't know what to do with that. Because now, I was the one setting the tempo. I canceled a joint card that day. Quietly. No warning. She found out 2 nights later when she tried to order something online. Her voice echoed from the office, sharp, unsure. I stayed in the garage, working on a cabinet I didn't need. Let her wonder. When I walked in, she asked if I'd changed something with the bank. I told her I'd simplified things. Cleaner that way. She didn't argue, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers hovered over her phone like she was searching for someone else to text, someone who might give her what I wouldn't. The next morning, she left for work early. Didn't say goodbye. That used to bother me. Now, it barely registered. I cleaned the house that afternoon. Not for her, for me. I bagged old photos, cleared a drawer, started putting together a digital backup of important documents. Insurance, taxes, assets. A man preparing for peace, not war. That night, I caught her crying in the bathroom. Door cracked open. Lights off. Sitting on the floor, back against the tub. No sobs. Just a slow leak of someone who thought she'd never feel cold in her own home. She had become a stranger. But more than that, she had become aware of it. And awareness? That was the beginning of her unraveling. Not because I left. Because I stopped trying to come back. It was around day 20 when I realized she was no longer trying to fix us. She was trying to reverse time. Pretending, subtly, that nothing had changed. That if she cooked enough meals, left her phone face up, laughed too loud at nothing, it might drag us back to something familiar. But it was too late for that. She started watching my patterns. Noticing when I left. Who I talked to. Which shirts I wore more than once. The questions stopped being casual. Now they were strategic, quietly panicked. She wanted to map the detachment like it was a system she could decode and interrupt. But there was no system anymore. Just decisions. I had stopped building a future with her the same day she weaponized affection. The same moment she decided my worth was tied to her mood. Now, she was staring at a version of me that no longer needed her to validate anything. And that terrified her. One evening, I came home to the sound of her pacing. Not walking, pacing. Measured steps. Phone in hand. Quiet voice. But I caught the edge of a sentence as I entered the hallway. He's not like this. He's never been like this. It's like I'm living with a ghost. She paused, then laughed softly, nervously. No, there's no one else. I don't think so. but it feels like he's planning something. She was right. I was. That night, she tried something new. Vulnerability. She brought out an old photo album. Us in Tahoe, laughing on the dock. Our first apartment with that broken faucet we joked about for months. She placed it on the coffee table like it was an offering. I nodded when I saw it, said nothing, and went upstairs. She didn't follow, but she sat in that living room for over an hour. Lights off, TV off, just silence and her mistakes. The next day, I removed her name from the emergency contact section at my job, updated my will, transferred the last shared bill to her account. Not to punish, to separate. Quietly, surgically, like a man who had already left, just hadn't walked out the door yet. Then something changed. She invited her sister over for dinner. I didn't stay, just nodded, said I had plans, and left. But I saw the look on her sister's face before I closed the door. Confused, curious, a little concerned. I waited. 3 days later, her sister texted me. Hey, everything okay between you two? I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Let the silence do its work. That weekend, I moved a duffel bag into the trunk of my car. Essentials only. No drama. Just preparation. She didn't see it. Or maybe she did, and chose not to ask. Either way, the bag stayed. Quiet. Waiting. On Sunday, she sat across from me at breakfast. Made eye contact for the first time in weeks. Said my name. I looked up. Waited. But she didn't say anything else. She just looked. And I think, in that moment, she knew. This wasn't distance. This was departure. Just not the kind you pack suitcases for. Because some people don't leave with noise. They leave with nothing. And they never come back. By day 24, the house was no longer just quiet. It was tense. Like walking through fog that somehow carried weight. You could feel it in the air. She'd started moving differently, slower, more deliberate. Like she was hoping I'd notice her presence without her having to say a word. But I had stopped reacting. Reactions gave her power. And power was the thing she clung to the most. That night, I watched her sit at the edge of the bed, back turned to me, scrolling through old photos on her phone. Not selfies. Not girls' nights. Us. Her thumb hovered over the screen longer than usual, like she was trying to remember how it used to feel. She was starting to grieve something she hadn't even lost yet. That's the catch with control. You think you're steering until you realize the other person stopped following miles ago. She sent me a text the next morning while we were both in the same house. Just one line. I miss you. I didn't reply, not to be cruel, but because I had no answer for her anymore. That evening, she made my favorite dinner again. Set the table for two. Even opened the bottle of wine we'd been saving for a special occasion. I walked in, smelled rosemary, garlic, that familiar sweetness she used to wrap me in when things were good. She looked up, hopeful, expectant. I thought we could, but I had already grabbed a protein bar from the cabinet. I've got plans tonight. I didn't say where. Didn't explain. She didn't ask. I think she was afraid to hear the truth. Because deep down, she knew it. She had made herself unavailable for years, emotionally, physically, mentally. Now the man she once dismissed had learned to live without her. And worse, he was good at it. She wasn't the prize anymore. She was the reminder. Of silence. Of rationed affection. Of one-sided effort. And no one mourns what they've outgrown. I started sleeping in the guest room. Quietly. No speech. No accusations. Just a pillow, a blanket, and a door she didn't dare knock on. Her text changed again. Can we talk? Please. I don't know what's happening. But she did. She just didn't expect to be on the receiving end of the same silence she had normalized for so long. By the end of the week, she posted a quote on her story. Something vague and performative. About how the quiet ones always surprise you. Probably aimed at me. Probably hoping I'd see it and reach out. I didn't. Instead, I updated my mailing address for the first of 4 key accounts. Small things. Foundations. Steps that couldn't be reversed. Then I scheduled a therapy session. Not for us. For me. Because healing isn't something you wait for permission to do. It's something you choose. Alone. And I had already started walking. Quiet. Focused. Unstoppable. It happened on a Thursday. Uneventful on the surface. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, scrolling her phone. I stood by the door, duffel bag in hand, jacket zipped. She didn't look up. Not right away. It struck me. Not the moment itself, but how normal it felt. Like she had spent so long not seeing me. This was just another blink. And I realized something. The pain wasn't in the leaving. It was in the staying too long. She finally looked up when I grabbed my keys. "Where are you going?" she asked, too casual, too late. I didn't answer. I just opened the door. That pause, 3 seconds of silence, held everything. Her confusion, her denial, my clarity. She called my name, sharp now, not curious, worried. But I was already walking. And this time, I wasn't coming back. I didn't slam the door, didn't throw accusations over my shoulder. I left the house like a man stepping out of a fire he no longer felt. For hours, I just drove. Not aimlessly, deliberately. The hotel room had already been booked. My name was already off the lease. I had moved the money, canceled the joint accounts, removed my access to everything I no longer considered mine, including her. That night, she called me 3 times. I didn't answer. Her texts came in short bursts, confused, then angry, then scared. "Where are you? We need to talk. Are you serious right now?" I didn't respond. Not to punish her, but to finish the silence she started years ago. She didn't realize how deep it had gone, that I had already built a life without her in my head, and now I was stepping into it. The next morning, she sent a voice memo. I didn't listen. 2 hours later, her sister texted me. One line. "She's falling apart." I stared at that message for a long time. Not out of satisfaction, out of distance. Because it wasn't my job anymore to hold her up. That was the point. I checked into the hotel. A small place. Quiet. Clean. I laid the duffel on the floor, opened my laptop, and booked the next phase. Temporary housing. New apartment. Lease signed. Utilities moved. My life now existed elsewhere. She posted a photo on her story that night. An old picture of us. Black and white. Some vague caption about holding on to what matters. I didn't like it. Didn't watch the views. Because the truth was, she was posting for someone who no longer existed. That version of me. He was gone. The next time she called, I turned the phone off completely. She had told me once that intimacy would happen when she felt like it. Now, connection would happen only if I allowed it. And I didn't. Because sometimes, strength doesn't roar. Sometimes, it whispers one word into the quiet. No. The second night in the hotel, I slept better than I had in years. No anxiety. No shallow breathing. No space in the bed that felt like punishment. Just silence, the kind I chose. I woke up to 8 missed calls. 3 voicemails. A wall of messages from her. First they were angry. Then desperate. Then, finally quiet. The last one just said, "Please." But that word didn't carry weight anymore. She had spent so long controlling the conversation by withholding. Withholding affection, words, attention. Now I was doing the same, but I didn't do it to hurt. I did it to heal. And healing looks a lot like indifference when you're the one being left behind. On the 3rd day, she showed up at my work. I saw her from the lobby window before security even buzzed her in. She stood there, arms crossed, scanning the room like she still had a claim on me. But she didn't know I had already briefed the front desk. They told her I wasn't available. She waited 45 minutes. I never came down. Later that night, she texted, "You're being cruel." No, I had just stopped being convenient. That weekend, I met with my attorney. The paperwork was ready. Filed. Quietly. No announcement. No warning. No revenge. Just resolution. A copy was couriered to her apartment the next morning. I didn't include a note. I knew the silence would speak louder than anything I could write. Her response didn't come until late that night. One line. "You're seriously doing this?" I didn't answer. She posted another story, some sad quote about lost connection and timing. It didn't sting. It didn't even register. Because she was talking to an audience that wasn't me. She was mourning the version of me who used to stay no matter what. But that man was gone. On the 7th day, she called my brother. He told me she cried on the phone. Asked if I still loved her. Asked if there was a way to fix it. He said he told her the truth. You had years to fix it. She didn't reply after that. And that was when I knew. The illusion she built, the one where she had time, control, power, it was finally collapsing. Not because I made her suffer, but because I removed myself from the story entirely. That's the part no one prepares for. When the person you once ignored stops being there. Stops showing up. Stops explaining. Just stops. And the worst part? There's no sound when they disappear. Only silence. And silence never negotiates. The last message she ever sent was a photo. It was from that trip we took to Charleston, sunset behind us, arms around each other, her leaning into me like it meant something. Underneath, she wrote, "We were happy once. I stared at it for exactly 9 seconds. Not because I felt something, but because I wanted to be sure I felt nothing. And I didn't. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply. I just closed the message and locked my phone. That was the moment I knew the silence had done its work. There were no more attempts. No more guilt-laced sentences. No sudden declarations of love. She had run out of performances, and the audience had already left the theater. I moved into my new place the next day. Fresh keys. Blank walls. No echoes of her voice. No reminders of who I had to shrink into just to keep the peace. For the first time in years, the space around me matched the space inside me. Open. There were no tears. No playlist of memories. Just a man, standing in his own life, untouched. A few mutual friends reached out over the weeks. Asked what happened. If it was true. If I was okay. I told them the truth. She left a long time ago. I just caught up. They all had the same reaction, quiet understanding. Because they'd seen it too. They just never said anything. That's how it usually goes. She disappeared from my feed within a month. Unfollowed. Blocked. Erased. But not out of spite. It was part of the cleanse. Removing the things that no longer deserved access. I started running again. I reconnected with my brother. Took a solo weekend upstate. Read 3 books in a row. Slept through the night without waking up to the cold side of the bed as a reminder. That's what people don't tell you. Sometimes, survival looks like subtraction. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Just less. Less noise. Less chaos. Less of her. I never saw her again. Never heard her voice. Never had the final conversation people always think they need. Because closure is just another word for permission. And I didn't need hers. The last thing I remember clearly was her voice saying, "You'll get intimacy when I feel like it." And now? Now she gets silence. Forever. Because some men don't raise their voice. They don't beg. They don't fight to be seen. They disappear. And what's left behind is the one thing no apology can fix. A man who learned to live without you, and then made it look easy. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.